there exist compasses that do not merely find direction, but seek the axis of light where the soul turns upon itself. Place one amid the noise of the age, and its needle will still point toward an invisible center. And right there, a concealed hermetic principle will begin to awaken. When the lines of sacred geometry intersect into a sealed star, one steps into a subtle trial, a light seal, meant to test whether the inner radiance still stirs. Do not rush to believe. Soon we shall touch the first gate, to see whether the answer truly glows upon the silent skin. Have you ever walked through a day blazing with lights, yet felt darkness inside your chest, like a theater whose power has gone out? Have you ever wondered why, standing amid praise, you still hear a hollow space, like the wind inside a seashell? In that instant, perhaps you are not lacking light. You just haven't placed it at the right focal point. Strange, isn't it? Yet it is precisely then that the unexpected occurs. When we stop forcing the surface, the quiet circles beneath begin to move. I will not preach, only open a ritual as thin as mist over stone. In the next few minutes, if you wish, prepare for a simple hermetic experiment. No conversion, no oath, only a way of placing your hand upon the axis to see whether the inner gears respond. There is no ostentatious magic. There is only structure, and structure, when aligned, awakens. Before we continue, a gentle yet direct reminder. This is an experiential practice, not a replacement for medical or psychological treatment. If you have heart conditions, high blood pressure, respiratory disorders, or any underlying illness that might make introspective exercises unsafe, pause, consult your doctor, and let your body decide. You do not need to believe. You only need to stay safe, and then test for yourself. Now let feeling replace reasoning. Imagine an ancient prism inside your mind. Each thought enters as a ray of light, and on the other side, the spectra separate into many degrees of silence. We do not rush to breathe deeply nor to meditate. We simply adjust the prism's angle by half a degree. Strangely, half a degree is enough to alter the entire trajectory of radiation. A slight tilt can become a dawn. In Hermetic thought, they say, as above, so below. The stars mirror the earth. But do not fear the slogan. In psychology, it means re-establishing the point of convergence of attention, where consciousness ceases to scatter. And in modern life, you might think of it as photography. When the focus aligns, the scene itself does not change. Only clarity returns. So if social media dazzles your eyes while your heart remains dim, perhaps the light source is not too weak. Perhaps the lens is simply confused. At this moment, let your inner ear listen for a faint sound, the click of a photon touching the edge of glass. It's fine if you can't hear it. Sometimes the feeling arrives later, like a mail taking the long road. Yet if somewhere your shoulder relaxes by half a millimeter, or your thoughts stop needing to win one more invisible argument, that is the sign the gears have met. The most controversial part is this: it works, but not in the way you think. We name the door about to open the luminous fulcrum. No spells, no loud invocations, only the quiet shift of a mechanism, and you, the keeper of the key, will touch the exact notch of its teeth. Do not worry, we have not crossed over yet. We are merely placing a hand upon the hinge, listening to its weight. And when the hinge stops whispering, a corridor will slowly emerge, like embossed letters beneath a thin layer of gold. That is only the first glint upon the stone's face. Yet behind it there remains an unfinished equation. There is a legend that says the first lines of the Hermetic corpus were not written. They were downloaded in a state of absolute stillness. when the writer vanished from himself. Those texts did not belong to religion or philosophy. They were maps of energy mechanics. Hermes Trismegistus, the name uttered by mystics with reverence, was not merely a man, but the intersection between man and principle. Thrice great, because he understood the three levels of energy: material, mental, and spiritual. The Egyptians called him Thoth, god of knowledge and memory. The Greeks saw him as Hermes, messenger of the gods. And between the two cultures, he became the bridge between earth and the luminous realm, where light known transforms into light understood. In ancient Egypt, seekers of the path did not begin with prayer, they began with silence. In the dark chamber of the Temple of Hermopolis, they sat before a quartz pillar engraved with symbols: a circle enclosing a square enclosing a triangle enclosing a point of light. They believed that when the mind reached resonance with this geometric order, the energy within them would harmonize with the structure of the cosmos. Not a miracle, but vibrational compatibility. But then, something unexpected happened. When the world entered the age of noise, that knowledge was dismissed as poetic metaphor. The Hermetic texts were buried under the paper tombs of Greek philosophy and interpreted as abstract speculation. People forgot that each symbol within them was originally a technique for directing life energy, not meant to be believed, but to be experienced. In mysticism, inner light is the purest vibration of consciousness. In psychology, we call it presence, the state in which the brain stops reacting and only observes. And in modern life, you may picture it as the moment you turn off every notification, close your laptop, and in a brief silence feel energy return, like a current reconnected to its source. What Hermetic teaching imparts is not belief in miracles, but understanding of interaction mechanisms. When your energy falls out of sync, life mirrors that misalignment through disorder, fatigue, and frustration. When you regain balance, reality, being merely a reflection of frequency, realigns itself as well, not through supplication, but through resonance. In ancient inscriptions, Hermes wrote, "Everything vibrates." A phrase once taken as metaphor is now what science calls quantum oscillation. Atomic structures are not still, they vibrate, and that vibration forms shape. Ancient mysticism and modern physics meet at a strange point. Matter is not solid, it is rhythm. And awakening the inner light, ultimately, means tuning the inner rhythm to match that primordial pulse. And yet, there is a paradox. The more modern humans crave positive energy, the more they lose the ability to be still. The harder they try to shine, the more they are dazzled by borrowed light. For true light is not bright, it is clear. It does not burn, it passes through. It makes no noise, it simply is. Imagine a small filament bulb placed in a sealed room. If no one regulates the current, it either burns too brightly and dies out, or dims until it grows cold. The human body and consciousness are the same. When the Hermetic current opens, the task is not to amplify, but to regulate. Activating the inner light is not an act, it is a tuning of frequency. Today, amid the rhythm of digital life, we are unconsciously pulled off center by waves of emotion, information, and constant resonance with others' vibrations. Hermetic teaching guides one back to the axis point, where vibration becomes so pure it reflects the cosmic source of light. At the moment you find that axis, the world around you does not vanish. It merely changes the way it reflects. Like water that stops rippling, the image of the sky returns to clarity. In the Hermetic engravings, there are no spells, only shapes. And those shapes speak a language the rational mind cannot read, yet the soul remembers. A circle enclosing a a triangle embracing a point of light. This is the foundational structure of all things: divinity, mind, form. All energy passes through these three layers before manifesting as the visible world. The circle symbolizes the whole, the principle of infinity. It has no beginning and no end. In mysticism, it is the memory of the universe. In psychology, it is the deep subconscious, where all experience settles. And in modern life, it is the endless stream of data we are immersed in every day. From information flows, messages, and images, all are the spinning circle. Yet the one who controls the spin is rarely us. The triangle represents active consciousness, the symbol of directed movement. Its 3 points correspond to thought, emotion, and action. When the triangle tilts, energy disperses. When it stands firm on its axis of balance, light from the circle can enter its center point. That is why Hermetic rituals often begin with establishing the inner axis, or in other words, realigning the geometry of the self. And the point of light, the smallest yet the most vital center, represents the divine principle within man. It belongs to no religion. It is simply the nucleus of wisdom awaiting awakening. In Hermetic symbolism, the point does not emit light. It reflects cosmic light. When the inner geometric axis of a person stabilizes, the light from the outer circle can reflect into this point, creating what is called the illumination of the self. Yet that is entirely mistaken if you think it is a supernatural trance. On the contrary, it is a moment of absolute clarity when all mental energies unite in silence. Many call it awakening, but Hermetic tradition uses another word: recollection. Because this light was never lost, it was merely forgotten amid the echoes of thought. In psychology, this is the mechanism of relinking the field of attention. When cognitive energy is no longer stretched thin across countless small goals, the nervous system naturally restores harmony. In modern life, it is similar to closing dozens of open windows on your screen. The computer instantly runs smoothly again. Ancient Hermetics described the process of activating the light as a dual reflection ritual. The light of the cosmos shines in, then reflects outward, passing through human consciousness like a double-edged sword, one edge touching matter, the other the invisible. If we are unbalanced, the sword cuts the hand. If we are still, it merely slices through the mist. Therefore, the Hermetic ritual is not about attracting energy, but about cleansing the conduit. When the conduit is clear, light flows on its own. When it is clouded, the light bends, and we mistake its distortion for loss. Imagine holding a glass sphere in your hand. If it is filled with dust, light passing through it bends and forms a false image. Clean the dust, and the light remains the same. Only now it appears in true form. Our body, mind, and emotions are like the 3 surfaces of that same sphere. Every negative thought, every fixation is a thin layer of dust. There is no need to fight it, only to wipe it away with stillness. At that moment, a subtle phenomenon occurs. Light does not come from outside. It flares from within, as if someone gently lit a lamp in a dark room. Science calls this the brain's biological response when entering the alpha synchronization state. But Hermeticism calls it the smile of light. Do you see? Sometimes the sacred lies not in ritual but in precision. When mind and body synchronize, the world ceases to resist. There is no miracle, only formula. And that formula is this: structure creates light. That is the mystery the Egyptians hid in their stone temples. The Greeks turned into myth, and modern humans rediscover through meditation, its brainwaves, and neuroscience. We are translating the same text, only in different languages. Yet the great question remains: how can that structure be activated within the living human of today, amid the heartbeat of work, social networks, and the endless flow of data? Hermetic teaching says that everything in the universe operates according to the law of correspondence. As above, so below. But hidden beneath that seemingly poetic phrase lies a subtle, energetic mechanism: the interference between two vibrations, one from the cosmos, one from the human being. When the two oscillations synchronize, energy is activated. When they fall out of phase, the light scatters. In other words, inner light is not something created, it is something unlocked when a person reconnects with their original frequency. This mechanism unfolds through three layers. The first is thought, where energy takes shape. Every thought, even a fleeting one, leaves a vibrational imprint. Like a tap on the surface of water, no matter how gentle, it spreads into waves. In mysticism, this is called the mental wave. In psychology, it is the cognitive pattern. And in modern life, it is that notification that pops up in your head before you can turn it off. The second layer is emotion, and where that energy is given color. Emotions do not happen to us. They are how energy expresses degrees of resonance. When we are angry, the vibration becomes coarse. When we are calm, the frequency refines. And when that frequency reaches harmony, it naturally draws light back to the central axis, like a compass needle returning north. And the final layer, the body, is the physical interface of the entire process. The body is not merely flesh, it is an amplifier. The spine is an antenna, the breath a current, the heart a frequency converter. When all three, thought, emotion, and body, resonate, hermetic energy is activated, and the inner light opens by itself. But here lies the most controversial truth. Everyone thinks they must do something to open the light. In fact, no. When you try, you create resistance. When you stop forcing, the current returns on its own. This sounds paradoxical, but imagine someone trying to fall asleep. The more they try, the more awake they become. Only when they stop forcing, sleep arrives. The inner light works the same way. If that is true, why can't we feel this energy in daily life? Because we live within a field of interference, where energy is pulled in hundreds of directions. Social media, pressure, expectations, all like overlapping frequencies that distort the inner music. When there is no pause, the real sound is buried. The ancient Hermetics had a method they called the column of silence, not to meditate as we understand today, but to re-establish the energy axis. They sat upright, the spine as a stone pillar connecting heaven and earth. Both hands rested on the knees, palms upward like open receivers. They did not take deep breaths or count rhythms. They focused only on the increasing heaviness of the body. And precisely when the body felt heaviest, that was the moment when energy became lightest. In modern terms, we can understand this as a neural reset. When attention returns to the body, the brain's anxiety circuits stop sending excess signals. The parasympathetic system activates, and bioenergy naturally rebalances. No magic, only physiology understood through ancient language. Therefore, activating hermetic energy is not an act of doing more, but an act of doing less. Less talking, less interpretation, less "I must." In mysticism, this is called the unbinding. In psychology, it is the release of reflex. In modern life, it can be as simple as turning off your phone for 10 minutes. Yet those 10 minutes are the small doorway through which silent light seeps in. Notice, the clearest moments of insight rarely come when we strain to think, but when we exhale and stop trying to understand. That is when energy passes through unhindered. And here lies the strange truth. The inner light is nowhere, because it is the ground of everywhere. It cannot be turned on like a lamp. We merely remove the coverings, and the light, always present, reveals itself. In a society exhausted by the effort to raise energy, Hermetic teaching reminds us energy does not need to be raised, only remembered, because it has never left us, but that is only the mechanism. How can this energy be activated into an experiential current to feel real transformation within body and mind? They called this ritual the reversal of light. It was believed by the Hermetics that, when practiced correctly, it could reverse the current of energy from its outward flow into the world back toward the center. It is not a supernatural act, but a cosmic mechanism mirrored through the human body. Because in the Hermetic cosmos, every light has two directions, radiation and return. One direction gives birth to the world, the other draws the world back to its source. In living, humanity has forgotten the second direction, and thus, light has become exhaustion. When we constantly emit, share, prove, strive, and broadcast, energy leaves its original axis. The ritual of reversed light is a way to bring it back, so that light no longer disperses aimlessly, but is reabsorbed like a drop of dew, rising back to the sky. Imagine this. In the stillness of night, there stands a single lamp in the room. Its light spreads outward, touching the walls, reflecting off glass. Now imagine gently turning the mirrors inward so the light returns to the lamp. In that instant, the room does not grow darker. It becomes more deeply illuminated. That is the mechanism of reversed light. The ancient Hermetics practiced this ritual in 3 stages. First stage, the gathering of light. They began by withdrawing the sense of sight, not by closing their eyes, but by letting their gaze rest upon the space between forms, the empty gap between 2 objects, between 2 ideas. In the first few seconds, the mind resisted. But then, as the ripples on water stilled, the outer light stopped pulling attention outward, and the current of energy began to turn. In psychology, this is the mechanism of defocusing, the release of excessive cognitive control. When vision stops fixing itself, the visual nervous system sends signals of safety to the brain, shifting brain waves into the alpha range. In modern life, we experience this when we stare blankly out a window without thinking. It feels like daydreaming, but it is actually a reset. Second stage, uniting the heart with the rhythm of the cosmos. The Hermetics called this returning to the luminous orbit. They use the breath as the rotation of celestial bodies, inhalation, absorption of light, exhalation, reflection of light, but not for relaxation. They believed that when the breath reached the point of no oscillation, where inhaling and exhaling were balanced, Hermetic energy activated, not because of oxygen, but because the rhythmic structure resonated with planetary orbits. In mysticism, this is the law of resonance. In biology, it is the heart-brain synchronization effect. In modern life, it is that moment when you sit quietly, feeling your heartbeat and breath fall into rhythm, and you realize you no longer need to try. But what few expect is this: when energy returns inward, the deepest emotions rise to the surface. The Hermetics called this purification by light. Many feel sadness, tears, or a slight trembling. Do not fear. When light passes through darkness, it does not destroy it. It reveals it. Final stage, the unification of the light point. When the returning light has gathered at the center, the practitioner places both hands on the chest, where the heart beats. They imagine a sphere of white gold light slowly rotating. Not imagination as fantasy, but as remembrance of one's geometry. For in Hermetic thought, the human body is a replica of the cosmos. The heart is the sun, the lungs are the wings of air, the head, the orbit of stars. When light returns to the heart, the entire energy system realigns. This is not belief, but a practical metaphor. If you try placing your hand on your chest and feel your heartbeat, within seconds, the parasympathetic nervous system activates. You feel warmth rising. That is the physiology of harmony. In ancient language, it is the fire of Thoth being rekindled. If in that moment you sense a wordless stillness, that is the sign the energy has been activated. Not an illusory light, but the return of order. Many ask, how do I know if I have succeeded? Hermetic teaching answers, when you no longer need to know. For the very wish to prove divides the current again, the observer becomes the barrier to himself. In mysticism, this is the eternal paradox. Only when you stop seeking does the light appear. In psychology, it is the delayed feedback of awareness. Its results become visible only when the mind has let go. In modern life, it is like trying to recall the name of a song. Impossible while you force it. Yet when you stop thinking, the melody returns on its own. Reversed light follows that law. Light returns only when you stop chasing it. And when the light has returned to the center, the outer world does not vanish. It merely changes direction. Everything that once drained you, work, social media, fear, desire, suddenly reflects differently, as lighter, clearer, and silent. That is the moment the Hermetics called the rebirth of vision. Not seeing something new, but seeing the old with eyes washed of dust. But the ritual is not yet closed. For even when the light has returned inward, it must be anchored, or else it will scatter again. And that anchoring is the final esoteric practice, the sealing of light into the body. There is an unchanging principle in Hermeticism. Light does not belong to the one who sees it. It only passes through the one worthy of carrying it. Therefore, when energy has been awakened, the next step is not to hold it tightly, but to anchor it into matter, so that it merges with the body, like the soul finding its home again. This ritual is called Ankayan, meaning anchoring the light. In the ancient temples, practitioners performed it at dawn when sunlight first touched the pyramid's peak, not to worship the sun, but to synchronize the outer rhythm of light with the inner one. To them, the body was the pillar and light, the sacred apex, waiting to align with its root axis. If you wish to try, see this only as a practical metaphor. Not medicine, not magic. Take it simply as a way to touch a forgotten structure within yourself. And before you begin, remember, if at any point you feel dizzy, tired, or mentally restless, stop, open your eyes, and breathe naturally. This ritual is not meant to force. It is a safe experiment, and your body alone decides the depth. Now sit upright, but without tension. Let your spine rise like a thread, stretching from the tailbone to the crown of your head. Do not stiffen. Let it extend on its own. Rest your hands gently on your knees, palms open like small dishes receiving light. Close your eyes lightly, not tightly. Let the breath slow but not deepen. Simply feel the air entering and leaving, thin as a ray of light slipping through a crack in a door. As you inhale, imagine a fine thread of light descending from the top of your head down along the spine. Not hot, not cold, just a quiet current. As you exhale, that current spreads throughout the body, as if your body were a lantern of breath, and the light slowly soaked into every fiber of its fabric. You do not need to imagine strongly. Simply know that it is happening, for imagery is only language, while energy is silence. After 3 breaths like this, place your right hand over your heart. Do not rub. Do not press. Just place it, skin to skin. Feel the warmth between your palm and chest. This is the anchor point. In Hermetic understanding, the heart does not merely pump blood, it is the magnetic center of the human being, where physical and spiritual energies converge. If you listen long enough, there may come a very small moment, a feeling as though the heartbeat skips half a beat, then steadies again. The Hermetics called this the golden resonance point, the instant when the biological rhythm and the cosmic rhythm phase lock into one pulse. Do not seek it. When the mind stops, it appears by itself. Next, move your left hand to rest on your lower abdomen. Feel the breath settle downward, like light returning to the ground. They believed that light endures only when it has weight. If the heart is the sun, the abdomen is the planet. Energy needs an orbit to circulate. In mysticism, this is called anchoring light into the earth. In physiology, it is the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, the signal of deep relaxation. If you feel a slight trembling or an unexpected sadness, do not resist it. This is not an anomaly, it is a sign that the current of energy has met a blockage. When you do not oppose, it dissolves naturally like salt in warm water. As the process settles, imagine your entire body as a tower of glass, with a column of light standing still at its core, upright, steady, unmoving. You do not hold it, you simply are, the space where light chooses to dwell. Now open your eyes slowly. No rush. Do not return, for you have never left. Only the mind once wandered. If you notice carefully, the world around you may not look different, but the sense of light has changed. Sounds feel softer. The air seems brighter. Time stretches slightly. Science calls this the entrainment effect. When brain and heart synchronize, subjective time slows down. But the Hermetics did not need to explain. They called it the still light, the illumination that stands motionless. And in that very moment, the Hermetic energy has been sealed into the body, no certification, no belief required, only silence in the marrow. As the ritual closes, let your palms rest again on your knees. Inhale gently, as if gathering the last traces of light lingering on your skin. Exhale softly, allowing it to sink deep within. Once energy has been sealed, it needs no protection. It already belongs to you, or rather, you belong to it. If you sense even the slightest shift, a lighter chest, a deeper breath, a subtle quietness, hold that moment. It is proof that you have touched the Hermetic structure, not through words, but through your own body. That light does not burst. It does not dazzle. It simply diffuses like a nameless fragrance. And from now on, every time you breathe, you will remember. Remember that this light has never left you. There is a final moment that the Hermetic inscriptions never describe in words. They simply call it the return. Because after the light has been activated and anchored into the body, the practitioner does nothing more. No chanting, no praying, no breathing, no thinking, only sitting, like a stone that has ceased dreaming of becoming a mountain. In that silence, something strange happens. The inner light is no longer a separate current of energy. It gradually dissolves into the surrounding space, and then that space dissolves back into you. The boundary between inside and outside disappears. The world suddenly softens. The Hermetics depicted this moment with a simple image. A drop of dew dissolves into the sea, and the sea realizes it was once the drop. No one loses anything, only something is remembered. If you have ever chased light hoping to be illuminated, know that it is that very chase that made you blind. Because light is never where we seek it. It is the space between two thoughts, the stillness between two breaths, the silence between two words. When the mind grows weary of pursuit, the light appears, not for you to possess, but for you to merge with. In mysticism, this is called the stage of unification. In psychology, it is the synchronization of cognition, emotion, and body, the state science calls flow. And in modern life, you recognize it in very small moments. When you watch the sunset and time seems to stop. When you embrace someone and no words are truer than silence. At that moment, light does not come to shine upon you. It comes to become you. Someone once asked, "After this ritual, what must I do to keep the energy from fading?" The Hermetic answer, do not keep it, because keeping is separation. Light lives only when it flows. So live as usual, eat, speak, work, love, feel anger, but with a different rhythm. The rhythm of one who knows that every action is a vibration of light. If you are angry, know you are angry within the light. If you are sad, know that the light is reflecting that sadness. And when you are happy, know it is not a reward, but the way light smiles through you. In Hermetic language, this is called the wisdom tier of the light bearer, one who does not preach, does not advise, but simply exists, letting the light teach through its presence. When you have passed through the 3 stages, awakening, return of light, and anchoring, the circle completes. You have stepped into the very geometry of the cosmos, not through knowledge, but through heartbeat. And now as the ritual closes, place your hand once more upon your chest, not to do anything, but to remember. That light is neither above nor below. It is the origin point where all directions meet. Inhale gently, exhale slowly. Feel that the world continues to move, yet you have shifted into stillness. And within that stillness, there is one phrase that every Hermetic disciple whispers as the ritual ends. What is opened by light cannot be closed by darkness. Let that phrase ring within you like a distant bell. If somewhere in your chest you feel even slightly lighter, if in this brief moment your breath deepens by 1 beat, hold that feeling. For it is the sign that you have witnessed for yourself. When you are ready, open your eyes and return to the world, not to leave the ritual behind, but to carry it in every gesture, every glance, every breath. From this moment on, there is no separation between meditation and living, for both are the same movement, light going out and light returning. And when all is quiet, whisper to yourself, "This light has never left me." If these words have touched something within you, keep this ritual and return to it whenever you are ready to listen deeper. Because each time you return, light will recognize you first.